You're not family." The words cut through the warehouse like a blade. My stepfather stood at the front of the room, one hand resting on his son's shoulder, the other gesturing dismissively toward me. 23 employees watched in silence. These were people I had trained, people I had worked alongside for 6 years. And now they were witnessing my public execution. "Derek will be taking over operations," he continued, his voice steady and cold. "He's ready for leadership. Some people just aren't cut out for it." His eyes met mine for a brief second, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Not just indifference. Calculation. This was a spontaneous decision made in the heat of the moment. This had been planned. Rehearsed. Time for maximum impact. I stood there, frozen, my hands gripping the clipboard I'd been holding when he started speaking. The room felt smaller suddenly. Hotter. Someone coughed. Another person shifted their weight. But nobody spoke. Nobody defended me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. Around midnight, I got up for water. That's when I heard his voice coming from the study downstairs. Low. Urgent. Making a phone call he thought nobody could hear. "My name is Adrian Cole, and I'm 28 years old. I grew up here in Columbus, Ohio, watching my mother pour her heart into the manufacturing business she built from nothing. Before you hear what happened next, please subscribe to this channel for more stories about people who refuse to stay down when life knocked them flat." I pressed my ear against the study door, barely breathing. My stepfather's voice was muffled, but clear enough. "The investors are ready to move forward," he said. "No, she doesn't know anything about it. Neither does the kid." My chest tightened. He meant my mother's relatives. The ones who still held minority shares in the company Mom had founded. "Adrian's replaceable," he continued. "Derek's the future. We just need to finalize the paperwork before anyone starts asking questions." I stepped back from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Replaceable. The word echoed in my head. I wasn't just being sidelined. I was being erased. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, hands shaking. For 6 years, I believed I was building something, contributing to a legacy my mother had started. Now I understood the truth. To him, I was just an obstacle, something to be managed and eventually removed. The next morning, I started looking through old files in the basement. The boxes were dusty and disorganized, stacked in a corner near the water heater. Most contained tax records and invoices from years ago. But tucked behind a filing cabinet, I found something else. A folder marked with my mother's maiden name, Brennan. Inside were the original incorporation documents, articles of organization from 2003, partnership agreements signed in my mother's handwriting. And there it was, clear as day. Victoria Brennan owns 48% of Brennan Industrial Solutions. Not owned. Owns. Present tense. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of every page. Then I kept digging. 3 boxes later, I found the transfer documents, dated 6 months after Mom died. Her shares had been transferred to my stepfather under something called a spousal succession clause, but the signatures looked wrong. Too clean, too perfect. My mother's handwriting had always been a little shaky because of her arthritis. These signatures were smooth, practiced. I sat back against the wall. The paper spread out around me. This wasn't just inheritance. This was theft. He'd rewritten history, and nobody had questioned it. The next day, I called my college roommate Trevor, who'd gone to law school. "Adrian, you need to be careful," Trevor said over the phone. "If those signatures were forged, that's serious. But proving it could take years. And a lot of money." I told him I understood. What I didn't tell him was that I'd already made a decision. I wasn't going to fight him in court. Not yet. I needed to understand the full picture first. That afternoon, my stepfather called me into his office. He didn't look up from his computer when I walked in. "We need to talk about your role here," he said. "Things are changing. Derek needs room to grow, and honestly, we're overstaffed in management." I waited. "I'm cutting your hours to 25 a week. You'll keep your benefits for now, but I need you to understand something." He finally looked at me. "Know your place. Stop asking questions. Stop digging through things that don't concern you. My stomach dropped. He knew I'd been in the basement. Do we have an understanding? He asked. I nodded slowly. What else could I do? Outside his office, Derek was waiting. He leaned against the wall, smirking. Tough break, little brother. He said, maybe you should think about going back to school or something. I walked past him without responding. The first person to reach out was Vincent Russo, a supplier we'd worked with for 8 years. He called my personal cell 2 days after my hours were cut. Adrian, I heard what happened. He said, I wanted you to know that you've always been straight with me. I can't say the same about your stepfather. I asked him what he meant. Late payments. Excuses. Last month, he shorted us $1,500 and blamed it on our invoicing. It wasn't our invoicing. He just didn't want to pay. Over the next week, 3 more suppliers contacted me. All of them had similar stories. Delayed payments. Broken promises. One of them said my stepfather had tried to renegotiate contracts after materials were already delivered. If you ever decide to do your own thing, one supplier said, call me first. I'd rather work with someone I trust. I thanked him but didn't commit to anything. Not yet, but something was shifting inside me. For years, I believed the company's success was because of my stepfather's leadership. Now I was realizing something else. People didn't trust the company. They trusted me. That night, I started making a list. Vincent called again the following week. This time, he had a proposal. I've been thinking, he said. If you ever want to start something small, I could help. Discounted materials. Flexible terms. You've earned it. I asked him why he'd do that. Because your mom was good people, he said simply. And so are you. Your stepfather's burning bridges. Someone needs to build new ones. For the first time in months, I felt something other than anger. I felt possibility. That same afternoon, my stepfather announced another round of restructuring. 3 long-time employees were let go without warning. Their responsibilities were divided among the remaining staff. Nobody got raises. Morale sank even lower. In the break room, I overheard 2 workers talking. He's going to run this place into ground. One said. What can we do? The other replied. We need jobs. I didn't say anything, but I started thinking harder about Vincent's offer. Maybe there was a door opening. Maybe I just needed the courage to walk through it. That weekend, I drove out to a storage facility and rented a small unit. The announcement came during Monday's morning meeting. My stepfather stood at the front of the conference room, arms crossed, expression blank. Adrian's position is being moved to part-time effective immediately, he said. We appreciate his contributions, but we're reallocating resources. Part-time, not even 25 hours. 15, maybe 20 if I was lucky. This is temporary, he added, though his tone suggested otherwise. We'll reassess in a few months. Nobody made eye contact with me, not even the people I had mentored. They were scared. I understood that. Speaking up meant risking their own jobs. After the meeting, I cleaned out my desk. 6 years of work, reduced to a cardboard box. Photos, awards, a coffee mug my mother had given me that said, "Built to last." I carried the box to my car and sat in the driver's seat for a long time, staring at the building, my mother's building, the one she'd poured her life into. I wasn't going to let him have it. Not like this. That night, I made a decision. I stopped waiting for his approval. I stopped hoping he'd see my value. I started planning my exit. I sold my truck first. It was paid off, and I got $4,000 for it. I bought a used sedan for $1,200 and banked the difference. Then I went through my apartment and sold everything I didn't absolutely need. Furniture, electronics, old tools. Within 2 weeks, I had $11,000 saved. I registered an LLC under my own name, Cole Manufacturing Solutions. The paperwork cost $300. The state approved it in 5 business days. I didn't tell anyone. Not my stepfather. Not Derek. Not even my closest friend at work. I rented a small garage space on the west side of town for $600 a month. It was drafty and smelled like motor oil, but it had electricity and enough room for basic equipment. Every night after my part-time shifts, I drove to the garage and worked. I built workbenches, organized tools, made lists of potential clients. 2 weeks into my secret project, someone knocked on the garage door. I opened it cautiously. 2 of my former co-workers stood outside. Kyle and Andre. Both looked nervous. "Can we talk?" Kyle asked. I let them in. "We know what you're doing," Andre said, looking around garage. "And we want in." I asked them how they knew. "Vincent told us," Kyle said. "He said you were starting something honest. We're tired of working for someone who treats us like garbage." I explained that I had almost no money, no clients, no guarantees. "We don't care," Andre said. He cut our pay last month, blamed it on market conditions. Then he bought Derek a new truck. Kyle nodded. "We're skilled. We work hard. And we trust you. That's more than we have now." We talked for 2 hours. By the end, we had a plan. They'd keep their day jobs for now, but work nights and weekends with me. We'd split profits equally once we had revenue. The next day, I signed a lease on a larger space. Nothing fancy. Just a warehouse garage with loading access and room to grow. We moved in that weekend. No big ceremony. Just 3 people who'd been discarded, deciding to build something new. Vincent delivered our first load of materials on Monday. He didn't charge us anything. We worked like people possessed. Nights, weekends, every spare hour. Kyle handled fabrication. Andre managed logistics. I focused on sales and client relations. There were no shortcuts, no drama, just work. For the first time in years, I felt free. Every decision was ours. Every mistake was ours to fix. Every success was ours to celebrate. We set up basic operations, a scheduling system, quality control checks, safety protocols. We weren't trying to compete with my stepfather's company yet. We were just trying to survive. 3 weeks in, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Adrian Cole?" a woman's voice asked. I said yes. "My name is Patricia Wong. I used to work with your stepfather's company. I heard you started your own operation. I have a small job if you're interested." I asked how she'd heard about us. "Vincent Russo," she said. "He told me you do honest work. That's rare these days." We completed her job in 4 days. She paid on time and referred us to 2 other clients. Our first month's revenue was $3,200. It wasn't much, but it was ours. The call came from Bernard Hughes, a client my stepfather's company had worked with for 12 years. I recognized his name immediately. "Adrian, I need to be direct with you," Bernard said. "Your stepfather's company has been jerking me around for months. Late deliveries, poor quality, and when I complain, I get excuses." I listened. "I heard you're running your own shop now. I want to give you a shot. It's a $40,000 contract. Can you handle it?" My heart raced. $40,000 was more than we'd made in 3 months combined. "Yes," I said. "We can handle it." We worked around the clock. Kyle, Andre, and I barely slept, but we delivered on time, under budget, and with 0 defects. Bernard inspected everything personally. "This is what I've been asking for," he said. "You've got my business going forward." That single contract changed everything. We had credibility now, a reference, proof that we could compete. Word started spreading, slowly at first, then faster. By month 6, we had 11 active clients. Most of them were former customers of my stepfather's company. He started to notice. I heard about it from Kyle, who still had friends at the old company. My stepfather had called an emergency meeting. He was furious. "Someone's stealing our clients," he'd said, "and I want to know who." He blamed the sales team, tightened supervision, started micromanaging every aspect of operations. Morale collapsed. 3 more employees quit within 2 weeks. One of them called me asking for work. I hired him immediately. My stepfather's paranoia grew. He accused employees of leaking information to competitors. He installed cameras in the warehouse. He started listening in on phone calls. People were miserable. Productivity dropped. Mistakes increased. Meanwhile, our operation was thriving. We weren't trying to sabotage him. We were just doing good work. But every client we won was a client he lost. And in a small industry, that mattered. I knew it was only a matter of time before he figured out who was behind it. That moment came sooner than I expected. He showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door, and he pushed past me into the living room. "I've been hearing rumors," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled rage, "about a new competitor. Small operation. Stealing my clients." I kept my expression neutral. "People are saying it's someone who knows my business inside and out. Someone who worked for me." He stepped closer. "Is it you?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm working part-time for you. I don't have time for anything else." He studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Good. Because if I found out someone I trusted was stabbing me in the back, there would be consequences." After he left, I sat down on the couch, hands shaking. That was close. Too close. I called Kyle and Andre. We agreed to be more careful. No more using my name directly. No more meeting clients in public places where we might be seen. 2 weeks later, Derek made a catastrophic mistake. He'd been given control of the company's largest contract, a manufacturing job worth $300,000. It required precision, timing, and attention to detail. Derek had none of those qualities. He ordered the wrong materials, missed deadlines, delivered substandard work. The client rejected the entire shipment. My stepfather tried to salvage the situation, but the damage was done. The client pulled the contract and demanded a partial refund. It cost the company nearly $70,000. Investors started asking questions. Why was the company losing money? Why were clients leaving? Why were there so many operational failures? My stepfather blamed everyone except Derek. But the investors weren't convinced. They demanded a financial audit, full transparency, independent review. My stepfather agreed, but I could tell he was nervous. And he should have been, because what the auditors found was going to change everything. The audit revealed what everyone had suspected, but nobody had proven. Years of reckless management. Not illegal exactly, but careless. Inflated budgets. Missed opportunities. Poor resource allocation. The investors were furious. Trust evaporated overnight. At the same time, my company received an invitation to bid on a major project, a manufacturing contract worth $200,000, the biggest opportunity we'd ever had. We submitted our proposal. 3 days later, we got the call. We'd won. The client explained their decision simply. You were cheaper, faster, and more reliable. It wasn't even close. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a moment, letting it sink in. We'd just beaten my stepfather's company in a head-to-head competition. Kyle and Andre were ecstatic. We celebrated quietly that night, knowing what this meant. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were winning. The next morning, my stepfather found out who owned Cole Manufacturing Solutions, and he lost his mind. He stormed into our warehouse without warning. I was reviewing blueprints when the door slammed open. "You!" he said, pointing at me. His face was red, his hands trembling with rage. "This whole time, it was you." I stood up slowly. "Yes. You stabbed me in the back. After everything I did for you." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Everything you did for me? You cut my hours. You humiliated me in front of my coworkers. You told me I wasn't family. I was trying to teach you humility." "No," I said quietly. "You were trying to erase me, just like you erased my mother." His expression shifted, just for a second. Guilt, fear, then it hardened again. "We need to talk," he said, privately. I told Kyle and Andre to take a break. Once they were gone, my stepfather's anger seemed to deflate. He looked older suddenly, tired. "I underestimated you," he said. "But we can fix this. We can work together." I asked him what he meant. "A partnership. Merge our companies. You bring your clients. I bring mine. We'll be stronger together." I waited for the apology, for some acknowledgement of what he'd done. It never came. "I'm proud of you," he said, Like that was supposed to fix everything. You've proven yourself. Now, let's be smart about this. I shook my head. You're not proud. You're scared. His jaw tightened. Watch your tone. You're losing clients, losing money, losing control. And now you want to partner with the person you called replaceable? He didn't answer. I don't think so, I said. He stood up, his chair scraping against the concrete floor. You're making a mistake. You think you can survive out here on your own? This industry will chew you up. Maybe, I said, but at least it'll be on my terms. He left without another word. Over the next 3 weeks, his company fell apart. The audit had spooked investors. Clients kept leaving. Employees resigned in droves. His bank reduced his line of credit. Suppliers demanded payment up front. His son, Derek, was nowhere to be found when things got hard. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my stepfather called me. His voice was different. Quiet, almost defeated. I need to see you, he said. Please. We met at a coffee shop downtown. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes. Wrinkled shirt. The confidence I'd always associated with him was gone. I'll get straight to it, he said. I'm offering you ownership. 51%. You run operations. I'll step back. I asked him why. Because I'm out of options. The company's hemorrhaging money. If I don't do something, we'll be bankrupt in 6 months. And Derek? He looked away. Derek isn't ready. Maybe he never will be. I waited. I know I treated you badly, he said. I know I hurt you. But this company was your mother's dream. Don't let it die because of my mistakes. It was the closest he'd ever come to an apology, but it still wasn't enough. I need time to think, I said. He nodded. Don't take too long. That night, I called Trevor. We talked for 2 hours. He helped me draft a proposal. Not a merger. Not a partnership. Something else entirely. 3 days later, I sent my stepfather a list of conditions. The conditions were simple. Full public acknowledgement of my mother's contributions to the company. Transparent financial management. Equal decision-making authority. And a formal apology delivered to every employee he'd mistreated. He called me 30 minutes after receiving the email. This is humiliating, he said. It's fair. He was silent for a long time. I need to think about it. Before he could respond, the investors intervened. They'd heard about my proposal and wanted to meet, all of us, together. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. I spent the weekend preparing. Documents, financials, evidence. On Monday morning, I walked into a conference room filled with people I'd never met. Investors, lawyers, accountants. My stepfather sat at the far end of the table. Derek sat beside him, looking miserable. The lead investor, a woman named Helen Cartwright, gestured for me to sit. Mr. Cole, she said, we've reviewed your proposal. We'd like to hear your perspective on the company's current situation. I took a breath. Then I began. I presented everything. The original incorporation documents showing my mother's ownership, the suspicious transfer of shares after her death, the financial mismanagement, the client losses. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. Helen asked my stepfather if he had a response. He shifted in his seat. Some of those documents are outdated. Circumstances change. Did you forge Victoria Brennan's signature on the share transfer documents? Helen asked. The room went silent. We were married. It was understood that. That's not what I asked. He looked down. The signatures may have been recreated for legal clarity. Helen closed the folder in front of her. That's fraud, Mr. Cole. My stepfather's face went pale. Derek looked like he wanted to disappear. However, Helen continued, given the complexity of the situation, the board has decided to restructure rather than pursue legal action, assuming both parties agree. She slid a document across the table. Adrian Cole will assume majority ownership and operational control. You will retain a minority stake and a consulting role. Derek will transition out of leadership entirely. My stepfather stared at the paper like it was a death sentence. You're forcing me out, he said. We're keeping the company alive, Helen replied. Thanks to your stepson. The vote was unanimous. My stepfather kept 15% ownership and a small stipend. Derek got nothing. As everyone filed out, my stepfather lingered. He looked at me with something I'd never seen before. Not anger, not resentment. Defeat. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Just the two of us." I nodded. We walked to an empty conference room. He closed the door and sat down heavily. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then quietly, I was afraid. I waited. "Your mother built something incredible. And when she died, I didn't know how to keep it going. I felt like a fraud. Like everyone could see I didn't deserve to be in charge." He looked up at me. "And then you started working there. And you were good. Better than me. I saw the way people respected you. The way clients trusted you. So you pushed me out." I said, "I thought if I could make Derek the heir, I could prove I belonged. That I wasn't just riding on your mother's legacy." He wiped his eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." It was the apology I'd wanted, but it came too late. Some things couldn't be fixed with words. "I accept your apology," I said, "but I'm not merging companies. I'm not bringing you back into leadership. What you did to my mother's legacy, to me, to your employees, it can't be undone." He nodded slowly. "I understand." But I continued, "I won't destroy you either. You'll keep your shares. You'll have income. You just won't have control." "That's more than I deserve," he said quietly. We shook hands. It didn't feel like reconciliation. It felt like closure. The company was restructured over the next 3 months. I brought in new management, restored employee morale, honored contracts, and I did something else. I renamed the company. Not Cole Industrial Solutions. Not Brennan Industrial Solutions. Victoria Brennan Manufacturing. My mother's full name. On every sign. Every invoice. Every business card. The day we unveiled the new branding, Vincent Russo was the first to call. "Your mom will be proud," he said. I believed him. My stepfather attended the rebranding ceremony. He stood in the back, watching quietly as I gave a speech about my mother's vision and values. Afterward, he approached me. "Thank you," he said, "for keeping her name alive." "It was always her company," I replied. "I'm just making sure people remember that." He left shortly after. I didn't see him much after that day. He'd show up occasionally for board meetings, but he never tried to assert authority. He'd accepted his new role. Derek moved to another state. I heard he got a job in sales. I hoped he found something he was actually good at. My company, the one I'd started in that garage, continued to thrive. We grew to 25 employees, then 50. We opened a second location, but I kept the original warehouse garage. The one where Kyle, Andre, and I had built something from nothing. I'd go there sometimes, late at night, just to remember where I started, and to remind myself what I'd learned. Success wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about building something worth building. I thought about all the times my stepfather told me I wasn't leadership material. All the times he made me feel small. He'd been wrong. Not because I was naturally gifted, but because I refused to accept his version of who I was. My mother used to say, "People will try to write your story for you. Don't let them." I hadn't understood that when I was younger, but I understood it now. My stepfather had tried to write me out of the story entirely, and for a while, I'd almost let him. But somewhere in that warehouse, surrounded by people who believed in me, I'd found my own pen, and I'd started writing. Not his story. Not Derek's story. Mine. 5 years later, Victoria Brennan Manufacturing was one of the most respected companies in the region. We'd won awards, earned certifications, built a reputation for integrity and quality. I stood in my office, looking out at the production floor. 53 employees, all of them treated fairly, all of them valued. My stepfather had been right about one thing. I wasn't cut out for his version of the family business. I was cut out for something better. I thought about that moment in the warehouse when he called me not family, how much it had hurt, how small I'd felt. Now, Standing in a building that bore my mother's name, surrounded by people I respected and who respected me, I felt something different. Not anger, not bitterness. Peace. He'd once told me I wasn't cut out for this business. Turns out, I was just cut out to build my own.